I'm joined here today by the one, the only. It is, of course, Miranda Fear the Maverick, set to take on Gillian Robertson coming up in February. What's going on? How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Of course, and I have to know, like your last name. It seems like one of those names that aren't real. Is that like a real, legitimate? You can go back and there are multiple Mavericks in the family tree.
Yes, it is.
I assume you must have gotten a lot of Top Gun jokes and stuff like that growing up. Like I feel like that's the kind of thing like people would have went after something like that.
Pretty much, yeah. That's the main one is the Top Gun. You'll hear people, reference four-wheelers, ATVs, and things of that sort too. So
But
fitting.
yeah. But for coming up with your nickname though, was that a fun one? Like, cause you can sort of play around, right? You could have just been like you went with fear like you had a little bit of wiggle room, I feel.
Yeah, it actually started at so it was just Miranda the Maverick, and then it became Fear the Maverick. And at first, I thought it was silly, and then it grew on me, and so now it is what it is.
Well, that's the thing with nicknames too, right? Like you're not supposed to choose it yourself. Like if everybody keeps calling you fear it's like, we gotta stick with it.
Yeah, pretty much. You can't choose your own, unfortunately.
So you've got this fight against Julian Robertson. I think you're the one who actually broke the news, right? Like normally the media likes to get on it, but you told everybody like, nah, I'm gonna step aside and I'm gonna go ahead and break this one.
Well, I've been asking my manager and asking and asking, and he was finally like, "All right, you're allowed to announce." And I was like, "Yes, good."
Well, that must have seemed like a hike in your numbers and everything, right? Because when everyone's reporting the fight, they have to give you credit, and most of the time, link your Instagram, link your social media. Like this is the person that broke the fight.
You would think I've had a few hundred added on in the past, I don't know, week or so, but I'm hoping it jumps a lot more than that once the news of the fight and the fight gets a little bit closer.
But so with the UFC debut, though, you must have seen a hike. Like it couldn't have been like a hundred. Like when you make that UFC debut, people are trying to figure out who you are and stuff like that. You must have seen that jump
Yeah,
on social media.
on Instagram alone, I think it was 30K that I
Oh,
got up higher than it was before.
yeah. So a
Yeah,
nice little jump there.
yeah.
I mean, do you prioritize like all social media, or are you one of these people that's more like Instagram focused? I know a lot of fighters they sort of neglect Twitter a little bit.
I definitely neglect everything but Instagram. Facebook is definitely more of that's where my family and I guess older people reside that don't know me as well personally, but I have my page that I'm pretty active on. But I'd say about half of it is me just resharing my Instagram, to be honest. And then Twitter, I'm good about like retweeting stuff and I'll reply, but I'm not so good about doing original tweets.
I assume with Facebook though, you must have like a lot of fans that try to add you as a friend, right? Because I know a lot of fighters they realize like, oh, you could easily have thousands of friends on there. You don't know any of them.
Mhm. Right, exactly. And I do. I have a lot of people who just follow the account. I don't have as many friends. I actually need to filter through the friends. And it's funny how you get the fans that are like, please follow me, please add me. And I'm like, I don't know you. Like, it's at first I used to just add everybody because I was trying to get that, fan base going. And now I need to be a little bit more picky and just tell them to go follow my page.
Well, Facebook's pretty personal too, right? Like I know for me, I have people like, from school, maybe work if they're lucky and stuff like that. But it's like when you start having random strangers, I don't know, Facebook feels like a really personal one.
I think it is just because people tag locations and stuff like that a lot more on Facebook, and it is where, like I said, the older people and your family and stuff usually are.
That's true. Let's talk about this fight with Julian Robertson. 'Cause I feel like it sounds like it's short notice from when you announced it, but I assume you must have known about this fight for a few weeks now.
Not a few weeks. I've been training hard, just keeping up with my training ready for a short notice fight because I've been told that that may be a very viable option. Not her necessarily, but I've been getting several offers of different people within a fight. So when I got the call from her, it was probably a week before I actually got to announce it, if not a little bit less than that. So I've been just training hard, keeping my weight low and that kind of thing for a while now.
Is it difficult to sit on news like that? Because I feel like when you get news like that, you just want to go out and announce it to the world, tell your family and stuff. It must have been tough to sit on that one.
It is, and I tell people close to me just for the purposes of getting sponsorships, and then of course my family, so I can decide if the timing works and when to take it and who to have as my corner. But as far as the personal news, yeah, it's hard to kind of hide it and hold on to it, especially when I first started with the UFC, like when I signed the contract and wasn't allowed to say anything. Now I understand this part of the game. That's the least of our issues.
And I know as a fighter, I think the question you guys get all the time from everyone is, who are you fighting next? When are you fighting next? Like that must be super tough. Everybody's asking you that, and the whole time in your mind, it's like Julian Robertson coming in February, but you have to sit there. Well, we'll see what happens.
Yep, basically. I'm like, don't know yet. We'll report soon or something like that.
Man, I don't know that anyone's ever had a scoop like from asking that, and then the fighter out of nowhere is just like, "Oh yeah, Gillian Robertson, we're fighting in February." Like, breaking it. I don't think that has ever worked for anyone.
Nope. I'm like, just watch my stuff. You'll see it eventually when everybody else does.
There we go. I know we talked after your UFC debut, and you kind of had this idea in mind of getting the big name opponents and stuff like that. Julian Robertson, you must have been pretty pleased when they came to you and said like that was the person who was next, because she does have a good following and a good name in the UFC.
Yeah, definitely. I got her offered a couple times. I took the fight instantly at first. She didn't want it as short of notice as they were offering it previous to this one. I'm glad that she ended up taking this one. She is higher ranked than me, I think, especially within the UFC rankings. But I'm ready for a challenge. I think she is too. I've met her before. I've always been a fan, so I'm excited to go in there and get to fight who were previously my fans. And I feel like I have a lot of confidence going into this fight. I really don't see anywhere that I have the weaker end of the game. My striking has really progressed, as I've said before. In between every fight camp, it just gets better and better. My cardio, what I feel like, what I look like, has changed in between each fight. I feel like more healthy every time I walk into the cage. And then on top of that, I think I'm the bigger, stronger opponent. And I grapple too. I see that all over the social media. It's like she's such a heavy grappler. I don't know how Maverick will do against her. And I think that's just because a lot of those fans only saw my first fight with the UFC, not realizing that my strength is indeed grappling. So I'm a brown belt. She's a black belt, but I've also competed in tournaments that she has and kind of seen how she does there. And I'm not really worried about that portion of it either. I think I have a wrestling and top pressure game that she's not ready for.
And so I know you guys can't get into game plan and stuff like that. It's things you got to keep to yourself. But when you prepare for an opponent like this, I mean, what's the focus kind of look like? I think people would assume that you're spending a lot of time in the gym focusing on the ground game, but at the same time, like, the striking would be a tool. What's kind of the focus on a training camp like that with this kind of opponent?
Honestly, it's all around. I train the same no matter, what their strength is. I focus on my own strengths and getting better in between each fight. So I'm working on striking. I'm working on the ground game. I'm prepared for anywhere this fight needs to go, but I anticipate that I'll be able to kind of shut her down on the feet. And she doesn't like getting punched, and I plan on making her, be worried about that.
So your UFC debut was, of course, at Fight Island. This time, it's not quite going to be as the huge venue and everything. Is there some kind of relief now being on Fight Islands? I know Fight Island, not every fighter likes being there.
It's definitely not the relief that I think a lot of people consider. I love being on Fight Island out there and having that exposure. The only relief for me is I'm going to school right now. It's
Yeah.
hard for me to be gone for 12, 13 days for one fight, and it's hard for my corners to make it out there too. A lot of them have other jobs, they have their family and things of that sort. It's not worth it for a lot of them to go out there. They would, but it's a pain. And then, of course, my dad gets to show up to this one too. He finally got his passport, so it wouldn't have mattered where it was. But I am glad it's in Vegas, a little bit shorter timeline to be gone away from everything and keep from getting stressed out. And then, in addition to that, just less traveling, which is always nice.
And so, how are you juggling school with this upcoming fight? 'Cause obviously, you have your training camp and everything. I know last time, I believe you said you were on Fight Island, still doing the Zoom classes and everything. How does that balance kind of look for this fight?
Yeah, it's going to be the same way now, except less time doing it. In Abu Dhabi, it was a little bit harder because we were such in a different time zone that I was staying up till 1 a.m. doing classes and having to work on homework and stuff. But as far as that, I just keep my little handy dandy calendar and
Yeah.
put it on my phone and everything else and make sure I prioritize the right thing. Right now, it's training a little bit more than I normally would be, especially intensity wise during school. So I'm having to make sure I get that recovery in when I need to, and classes start back up or not tomorrow, Monday. So
And so, are you going to be going back to school physically at some point? I know, I think high school where I'm at, I mean, we're in North Carolina. I think March is when they're sort of having people come back. Are you going to be at school physically at some point, or are you able to sort of finish up online?
they really don't know yet. It's Old Dominion University. I know that they're shut down the first 2 weeks and then they're going to reevaluate. Last semester, they opened up for a little while and they had class in person. I really enjoy having my class in person for statistics, at least. It's a really hard class and it's pretty hard to do online, but everything's going to be a challenge anyway. So I'm ready for whatever they decide.
So, how can you juggle school in person with your training camp? Like, is this the kind of thing you'd be the student in the back of the class with the desks, doing the shoulder presses and stuff like that, or were you able to find a good balance?
No, I find a good balance. It's actually helped with the virtual. I come home straight from the gym, work on my stuff, do whatever meetings I have to do, shower, clean up, eat, and then right back to school until training starts again. It's not something I'd wish on everybody. It's stressful, it's hard. There's not time for much else, and sometimes one or the other suffers. Usually I let the school, pass instead of getting straight A's like I probably could if I was focused on it the whole time. But I am looking forward to physical classes being done for sure with school, which hopefully is by the end of 2021, but who knows?
And so getting back to this fight with Jillian, what does this do for your career at this point? Because she is ranked, obviously. Like I feel like this would sort of give you a jump start towards where you'd like to be in the UFC. I mean, what does this one do for your career?
I agree. I think this kind of sets up who my next opponent would be if I win. I think it would give me a top 15 opponent for sure. I've kind of said it before. I would rather wait until kind of my next contract, I guess you'd say, to get a ranked opponent just because of the pay levels difference. And I like how everybody kind of took it out of proportion, was like, Miranda's not happy with her pay. She's brand new. That's not true. That's not what I meant or said. I was just saying that in comparison to the pay, I would rather get a few lower level fights leading up to the higher level girls so that I could get my pay inching up as I go. But I anticipate that after this Gillian fight, that's not really an option for me, and I'm fine with that too. I'm ready for those opponents. So my guess is I'll have a top 15 and then start branching into the top 10 after that, if not before. I've said kind of the dream fights for me are to fight Caitlin Chukagian or Antonina Shevchenko. So Caitlin is a little bit older. I know that she's getting ready to retire or has mentioned it a few times. And, like the old Rocky movies, I wish she'd give somebody young a chance to come in there and test their own steel against hers.
All right, one last question for you. You're going to hear it a million times. So, of course, you have to hear it too. That's how it works. But how do you see yourself getting your hand raised in this fight?
I think it'll be TKO. Second round is my guess.
All right, there we go. That's the official prediction. Thank you so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I know you're extremely busy, so I appreciate you making the time. And we look forward to this fight. It's going to be a really good one.
Thank you. Appreciate it.